Hi guys, I'm back here with another SQL tutorial. In today's video, I'll be going over joins. I've talked about joins in a previous video, so if you didn't get a chance to watch it, I'll be adding the link in the description under this video. I believe it's a great video to have a general idea about joins and how they work and why we use joins in SQL. But in today's video, the type of joins that we'll be using will be a little bit complex just because we'll be joining more than one table. We'll be joining 3 tables together, and we'll also add some aggregate functions in our select statement, and we'll be using a having and a group by clause. So let's get started. So what I'd like to show you first is what we have inside our tables. Just let's make sure that we have the right database selected. So as you can see here, it says master, so you can simply just select the name of the database that you want to do the work on, or what I prefer to use is to use the keyword use. Let me just make it all capital and then put the name of our database and then put go. I prefer to use this method just because I add this piece of code above all the queries that I do, just to make sure that we are working with the correct database. So let's go ahead and do select, and I want to show you what we have inside 3 tables that we'll be joining. So let's start with the employee. Select all from employee table. Okay, and let's go ahead and execute this. So here we have all the employees that are working in our system. We have doctors, we have nurses, and we have receptionists. And secondly, let's go ahead and query everything from the doctors table. And everything from the appointment table. Sorry about that. So let's go ahead and query everything. So here we have 3 doctors that are currently working, and each one of them has a few appointments and is assigned to a few patients. So what we would like to do today is to find out the number of appointments per doctor, and then later we can do some exclusions. So for example, we want to exclude general from our report that we'll be building. So let's go ahead and get started. So what we will do, let me get rid of that. Let me also get rid of our table. So we'll go ahead and select, we would like to have the first name, last name, specialty, and also the number of appointments. So we'll start by saying select employee first name. So a nice trick that I prefer using is to go backward and then forward. So I would go ahead and, so I know my first columns will be coming from the employee table, so I will say from employee table first. Okay, and this will help the IntelliSense go into that table and scan for the column names. So when I come here and put a letter, it would automatically bring all the column names that we have inside that table. So employee first name, and we'll call that doctor first name. Then we also want the last name as doctor last name. Okay, and nothing else that we need from the employee table, so let's go ahead and move forward. Secondly, we'd like to have the specialty. So what we would do is same idea, start backward, moving forward. So we'll say join, then doctor table, and let's go ahead and rename these tables just to make life simpler for us. For this one, I'll just call it table E, here table D, and here we'll go ahead and put the keyword on. And these two tables are related by the employee ID. The employee ID is the primary key in this table, and in the doctor's table it's the primary key as well, but it's also a foreign key that we are borrowing from the employee table. So we'll go ahead and put e dot employee ID equals to d dot employee ID as well. So once we go up here and we put the letter S, specialty should pop up. Here we go. So let's go ahead and query this select statement and see what we come up with. So here, as you can see, we were able to bring the doctors that we have, the 3 doctors that we have, as well as their specialties. If you remember before, these were not on the same table, but with our join we were able to bring this column from a different table and join it with these 2 columns which were from the employee table. So lastly, would like to add a count function, and if you guys remember, let's go ahead and go back to our appointment table. And just query this one only. So what we ideally what we'd like to do is to count the number of doctor IDs that we have in this table, and this would show us how many appointments we have. So let's go ahead and go back here. I'll say count doctor ID as let's go ahead and name it number of appointments. Okay, and here of course we have an error because SQL is confused. It's like, okay, I'm not seeing a doctor ID anywhere in these 2 tables. So what we'd have to do is to go back here and also join the appointment table. So as you can see, the IntelliSense is not helping me with the names, so nice trick that I use is to go to edit IntelliSense and then refresh local cache. Okay, and we'll call it A on. So here we'd like to connect the doctor table to the appointment table. So we'll say d dot employee ID and don't forget your commas when you're adding multiple columns to your select statement, and that equals a dot that employee ID in the doctor table equals to the doctor ID in the appointment table. So here, and if we go ahead and run this as it is, we would get an error, and the reason is that we have an aggregate function. So let's go ahead and query this and I'll show you the error. So here it says it's invalid because it contained an aggregate function or the group by clause. So what it's asking us to do is to use a group by clause, just because we were using an aggregate function and SQL does not allow us to query data without a group by when we have an aggregate function. So go ahead, and we want to group by the first name, last name, and specialty. So let's go ahead and put that down. And if we go ahead and execute this, we should come up with the names of the doctors, their specialties, and also the number of appointments that each one of them have. So we can do two things here. We can use a where function just to limit the options that we have here. But what I'd like to do is to use a having clause just to bring up the doctors, all the doctors other than general. So let's go ahead and do that. So go ahead and say having specialty not equal to general, and if we execute this, we'll get this new table with general taken out. We can do an order by, and this could be anything. I prefer to order by the last name, so order by doctor last name, and let's go ahead and execute this, and here we go. I hope this was helpful, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Let me know if you have other questions. Please post it in the comments.